Hello, everybody, and welcome live on a Monday night on TikTok to another edition of Motorsports Today, powered by SeatGeek. Use the code MTODAY, all caps one word, MTODAY, for $20 off your first purchase at checkout. Eddie Kalegi, Adam Tropper, Tim Moore, Tyrell Baker here with you on this Monday night. No racing this past weekend, but the tripleheader to close out the 2025 F1 season starts this weekend in the States on the Strip, the Las Vegas Grand Prix. We're going to help get you set for that and talk about which drivers are under the most pressure to perform in the final 3 weeks of the season. Plenty of NASCAR silly season news to touch on as well. And I have a little NASCAR game planned for the show as well that none of these other guys know about yet, so we are going to get into that later in the episode as well. Reminder, you can find us on the socials at Motorsports Today. Find us on the web at motorsportstoday.net. We're live on Mondays, 7 to 8 p.m., Fridays, 12 to 1 p.m. on WRSU. Every episode archived on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. That being said, let's take you through what you might have missed from the weekend with our pit stop. So in NASCAR, Junior Motorsports will attempt the Daytona 500 for the second consecutive year. Announced on Friday night that Justin Allgaier will be back in the number 40 Chevrolet. Made his way into the 500 via the duels back in February and will look to do it again. The 2024 Xfinity Series champion will drive for Junior Motorsports in an open car in February. Other NASCAR news, it was announced last week that Parker Retzlaff would be signing with Viking Motorsports, replacing Matt DiBenedetto in the 2026 campaign. It was announced today that Retzlaff and Viking Motorsports will be affiliating with Richard Childress Racing for 2026, as they will become an alliance partner, same structure that Big Machine Racing has as well. So Retzlaff will have some additional funding as he races for the full-time O'Reilly Auto Parts Series campaign in 2026. That's your pit stop, but got to go to open wheel, guys. That's the series that's in action this coming weekend. Vegas. First thing, I've noticed that the F1 Twitter has been posting a lot about trying to sell tickets for this race. I don't think it's selling very well. I think it's at a weird time of the year, a week before Thanksgiving. On top of that, it seems pretty expensive. What did you say, Terrell? $1,600?
$1,600, yes.
That's ridiculous.
So where does that compare to other years? Because that's what I'm trying to think. Because if I remember what is it, 2 years ago? I want to say it was maybe the starting price was somewhere around 1,800 to 2,000. So I feel like that's going down a little bit.
I don't remember exactly, but it's definitely still a little cheaper than the prior 2 years, which is crazy.
I say, don't get me wrong, that's still bad. Like I'm not spending, for example, I wouldn't even consider spending 1,600 for the Super Bowl, let alone F1. But like, I will admit, to me, at least I could be wrong, but I think that's actually a little bit cheaper. So that's all I'm going to say. They're making a little bit of strides here in America, just a tiny bit.
So the average ticket price for the first Vegas GP in 2023 was $1,667. So maybe a little bit of a dip down, but I mean, so who is paying $1,700 to go to a race?
They've gone down $6-7 grand. Great and grand.
Oh, man.
I knew we were getting that. And then NASCAR's lucky that nobody runs the 67 car on the regular. But if 2311 keeps running it in 2026, just wait. Everybody's going to be saying 6-7.
You know, that's all I need to hear. Keep Corey Hyman trucks.
But Vegas tickets are through the roof. But there's a lot of intrigue heading into this race because, I mean, mathematically speaking, the championship has not yet been decided in Formula One, though I think Lando Norris, I think we can all agree, has taken quite the foothold, especially given his performance in Brazil. And I think that's kind of where I want to start this episode, Tropper, because you've got 3 races left. There's points. There's a max of 83 points in the line with 3 races plus a sprint, all at tracks where Max Verstappen has done well. And first half of the year, Oscar Piastri was the best driver in the sport. But right now, both of them have a big uphill battle. And as critical as I've been on this show of Lando Norris so many times, Tropper, I just don't see a world where he's losing this championship right now. I think he took firm control of it at Brazil, there was plenty of opportunity for mistakes, whether it was the sprint in the rain on the Saturday, or of course the race on Sunday that saw 2 safety cars in the first 8 laps. And Norris was ahead of all of it, maxed out on points. He's 24 clear of Piastri. He's 49 clear of Verstappen. I would be shocked at this point if Lando Norris doesn't win the championship.
Same here. I mean, we're saying 3 races left overall, not including the sprints, obviously, but he's already almost a full race worth of points above his teammate, let alone Verstappen. Like we've been saying, Max Verstappen is more than capable of making it to the championship and getting all those points back, but he just hasn't been able to make enough on Lando, and that's because Lando has gotten the job done. Even if it's not winning every race, he's still been on the podium. He's getting the points, and that's all you can do in F1. And he's going to continue to do that the next 3 races, unless there's another bizarre McLaren freak out between both Lando and Oscar. I don't see a way for Max to swoop in and get 50 points. And even though Oscar, 24 isn't too much to make up in F1, theoretically he could win against Lando. They could finish 1-2 in all 3 races, and I think Oscar would steal the championship. But what are the odds that's going to happen? I feel like at this point, you have a third-year driver, and don't get me wrong, I am very high on Piastri, but I just don't see a world where if there's no catastrophic mishaps on Lando Norris's end, I think the champion's his.
Yeah, I just don't see a world where Lando Norris messes this up at this point. But there's other stories to be had on the grid through these 3 races. And of course, we could see something change and maybe a shock in the championship, but I don't see that happening with the way the last couple of weeks have progressed. But I think there's other stories that need to be told here that we need to pay attention to. And I'm going to just start with the thing that we talked about plenty on Friday, Ferrari. And TCB, there is a lot to prove for Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc over these last 3 races. Both of them getting damaged within the first 6 laps of the Brazilian Grand Prix, and all the comments from John Elkann that were far-fetched, ridiculous, and unnecessary, but have drawn more eyes to a Ferrari team that now sits 4th in the constructors' standings after finishing 2nd, only 30 points behind McLaren last year. Now they have Lewis Hamilton. They're not performing. I don't blame it on the drivers, though, and the comments from Elkann are ridiculous. But I think if there's anybody that needs to prove something through these last 3 races, just to get the ball rolling in 2026, because this year has been nothing short of a massive disappointment, and they don't have a win this year, it's got to be Lewis and Charles.
Absolutely. And yeah, I remember in the summer they were actually running pretty decent. I remember Lewis ended up winning a sprint race and the whole world was going crazy thinking, "Oh my God, he's back. Ferrari's so back." And then kind of fell apart. And then also I believe it was Leclerc had that bad crash at Zandvoort, sorry. Yeah, so they definitely are on the decline big time here, and they definitely got to get the ball rolling. Obviously they're not going to win within the next 3 races, but they just got to try to click off some top 5s or even podiums or just something. They got to just get that momentum back going. And the way how they've been running recently is not how Ferrari should be running and how they usually run. Like I said, they just really got to improve. These next 3 races have to be proving ground for these 2 guys.
Yeah. Now, someone else that I think needs to try to prove it, and I don't know what he can do, but there's still open seats on the grid. And I don't think he's coming back to the 2nd Red Bull car. I really don't know what Red Bull's going to do this offseason. But Yuki Tsunoda, I mean, we go back to the beginning of the year, Tim, and Yuki Tsunoda was maybe the most highly touted prospect in F1. And people were like, "Oh, look what he's doing with RB. Get him to Red Bull. See what he can do." But just like Liam Lawson, just like Sergio Perez, he can't figure it out in that car. But that's not to say that Yuki Tsunoda is some bad driver. And the results have been terrible this year since moving to Red Bull. But it's been such a 180. Yuki Tsunoda has gone from the talk of the town to being almost completely forgotten about in the grand scheme of Formula One right now. And it would be really unfortunate if Yuki Tsunoda has no place on an F1 grid that gets bigger next year with 22 cars instead of 20, because driver talent, I truly believe he should be there, but he's just in a bad situation right now at Red Bull. And I don't know what he can do over the next 3 races. Obviously, getting in the points is a start, but Yuki Tsunoda needs to figure something out, because this is someone who has gone from being one of the most exciting drivers in F1 that everybody was talking about to now just being irrelevant.
Well, and I think last race does no favors either. I mean, where did Max start in that race? Was it 17th, right?
19th from the
19th.
pits, and he got the
Thank you.
third.
So to go from 19th to the podium, and by the way, a sport that hardly sees a bunch of overtaking in the race. You're talking about the fact that Max overtook 16 cars to get to where he did to finish on the podium. That is, I mean, first off, a remarkable run on Max's end. But the point is that when you have your teammate going out there, and I understand he's a multi-time champion, top of the world, best driver in the sport of Max Verstappen. But when you're seeing him do that, and then Yuki's sitting in the back there struggling, it's just, again, I understand he's a rookie, but to me, if that's Red Bull, that's the dead example right there of what you can't have happen in the future, right? And I understand laps are important, mistakes are important. And in F1, because obviously there's a lot less cars in the field compared to NASCAR, right? The sense of urgency and the sense of, finishing well is furthermore pinpointed because there's a lot less opportunity and a lot less competition in terms of total cars you have to deal with on the track. So what could be, for example, a 17th place finish in NASCAR sounds great and grand, but in the F1 world, that's practically near dead last, right? So for Yuki, it stinks, right? Because again, I do think the talent is there. I think there is opportunity for him, but the problem is that this is a sport that, again, it's, I don't even want to say it's full relevancy like football, like what have you done for me recently? But we saw it right at the start of the year. Red Bull made a drastic decision just a couple races in the season to hopefully save their chances at going out there and battling for a Constructors' Championship. Now, of course, with how good McLaren's been this year, that ended up not happening. But who's to say, right, that if Yuki gets another shot, let's say next year, Eddie, who's to say that we don't see ourselves in this scenario again where it's 2-3 races and nothing's picked up? So for me, you talk about pressure, but I do feel in a way for Yuki that there is that pressure on him that the performances need to come and he needs to build some sort of momentum and confidence. Otherwise, he's not going to have a ride in this F1 world, regardless of how talented he is, because results mean everything with who you are. And to be on Red Bull and not produce some sort of results, that's just unacceptable. It's that simply put.
Yeah. And I'm glad you kind of drew that comparison to the NFL because it really is that because there's so little room for, there's so little room for mistakes in Formula One, I feel like. And it's very similar, I'd say, to an NFL quarterback. There's only 32 starting QB positions. And if you're performing poorly at a given moment, you can lose your job. And in F1, we have seen that. We saw Jack Doohan get canned so early in the year. You see Liam Lawson get demoted and Yuki Tsunoda takes over so early in the year. Nick DeVries was a big prospect a couple of years ago. Got points in his first F1 start filling in for a driver who had COVID with Williams, and then he loses his ride halfway through his rookie season. It's so difficult to stick, especially when you are a young driver in F1 that is really a lot like what we're seeing in the NFL with rookie quarterbacks over the last few years.
And not even rookie. Let's just say regular quarterbacks too. Joe Flacco, Daniel Jones, the list goes on and on and on.
Russell Wilson.
Of people. Russell Wilson, yes, absolutely.
But part of the problem too, I'd say kind of on that point, is you're seeing people forced into bad situations, which I'd say is the case in both NFL and F1 with rookie quarterbacks, and the fact that we had 6 rookies of the 20 drivers in F1 this year that were a lot of them driving for teams that had major problems, and a driver with no experience isn't going to fix that. I'm not saying like a Bottas or a Perez or a Ricardo would have fixed the problems that some of these teams would have had this year, but throwing someone in with no experience just makes things even worse, and that's a problem we've seen in F1 with certain teams that have continued to struggle. That's a problem we see in the NFL too with teams that continue to struggle.
Well, my question to you, Eddie, is more of we sit here right now, and obviously, again, who knows what Red Bull's doing, because for their terms and of what they expect of themselves, this year's considered embarrassing, right? Even though they, again, Max has had a great end of the season. There's a lot of positives. They're racing for wins again. It's just not both cars. My question to you is, though, if it's not Yuki in that second car next year, who else is there to replace him? Because truthfully, there is, solid drivers in the F1 world, but to race on the caliber of F1, I mean, the only person, again, I would sit here and I said it to this day that I would sit here and I would go there and I would grab would be from the IndyCar sense is Alex Palou. There's nobody else in this moment that has the stock, in my opinion, to go out there and replace him. But that's just me. Do you feel like there's somebody that maybe could take his seat that could be better and could give them the performances?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up because there was a driver I wanted to talk about that has not gotten enough credit this season, that while he's signed on for 2026, I think bigger teams should be looking at him. And that's Ollie Behrman. Ollie Behrman has gotten in the points the last 4 races now with Haas. Ollie Behrman got in the points in his debut, filling in for Carlos Sainz when his appendix burst last year with like no notice for Ferrari. And he jumped into Ferrari, who, yeah, they're not Red Bull, but they've had definitely some problems with their cars too over the last couple of years. He jumped in effortlessly, got a top 10. Now, is he going to go to Red Bull next year? No, but...
Didn't you call for Behrman being at Red Bull last year, or am I just forgetting things?
Yes,
Because I could recall. Okay.
Yes,
so
I have been...
This is a repeat.
Yes, I've had some bad F1 takes, I'll admit them. But something that I have been high on this whole time that I will, die on that hill is that Ollie Behrman deserves a top-tier F1 ride at some point. He's proving it right now. Now, yes, granted, Haas has improved their program. They have come a long way from a couple years ago when they had Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher as their drivers, and even the Romain Grosjean days. There were dark times at Haas for a few years, don't get me wrong, and Magnussen helped lift them up a little bit, Hulkenberg as well, and sure, they have a good lineup right now with Ocon and Behrman, but Ollie Behrman has done so well this year. We've seen him running in the top 5 a lot since the summer break, competing with teams like Mercedes and Verstappen and running up there in the mix. And 4 straight races in the points for someone who's driving for a team that is pretty close to bottom of the barrel in F1, you got to give credit where credit is due. So if there was one driver that I'd hate to thrust him into the Red Bull situation because I feel like he'd end up, meeting the same fate as all these other guys. But if there was somebody who is right now in F1 that I think could potentially elevate Red Bull, it's Ollie Behrman, because he's proven to jump into subpar equipment before and make things better. So I don't know, Tim, to answer your question, that's the guy. That's the guy for me.
I mean, I like that, but I truly think that second Red Bull car is just cursed at this point. We talk about how it's been made for Max Verstappen's driving style, and Liam Lawson, he got demoted, but he's doing better. Yuki Tsunoda, we've been saying the last 10 minutes how this was supposed to be his big break, and look what happened. So I mean, while I agree with you that Behrman might be one of the best people theoretically for that job, I don't think there's a point for the job at all.
But the one thing I will say to play devil's advocate a little bit is we're going to see wholesale change in 2026. We don't know exactly what's been going on behind closed doors. Obviously, we know Red Bull cares about making the car good for Max Verstappen so he doesn't leave. But I'd venture to say that I'd imagine that behind the scenes, they've been at least working on making both cars very competitive. I think that second car is going to be better in regard, like, the gap, I think, is going to be narrowed between Verstappen and whoever his teammate is next year with the regulations.
How do you convince whatever free agent of that, though? Because you're going to have that problem with any team, really. We've been talking about with Aston Martin, too, a lot of the unknowns behind the scenes. But how do you get a free agent to go to that car if it could be a death sentence for your career if you don't know exactly how it's going to go, and that's just a hypothetical.
But Tropper, that's the risk and reward you take in sports. And again, Eddie mentioned the comparisons to the NFL, right? Where sometimes you're going to put yourself in that bad situation. But I mean, most of these drivers, let's be transparent, especially if you're, again, like I keep on mentioning Palou in the past, but like coming from IndyCar and making that jump to F1, right? I guess in a way, these drivers have been always taught in their life, this is the pinnacle of racing for them. And you will do anything to be in an F1 seat. And again, next year of 22 seats, to be one of that 22, that is magical. That is the smallest of percent of people trying to aspire to be F1 drivers in this world. And again, I think it's, if you get the opportunity, because it's not calling every day, to get that risk, I think you take it. But the other thing too, that, and I know Eddie just brought this up about how it may feel that there's going to be closer comparisons from car 1 to car 2, but I will also say this, the one thing that will not change in my truthful opinion in F1, because it hasn't changed in a little bit, and this new car isn't going to change anything in my opinion, not in regards of what we're seeing with results, but you're not going to see what NASCAR has right now. And that's it. When the next gen first came out, right? How any driver can win on any given week. I still feel there's going to be 2 or 3 teams that are going to be best from the rest. They may be closer right off the bat, but come the end of the first season with this new car, in my truthful opinion, you're going to still have those teams that are going to stand out above and beyond, and it's going to become very clear who has it figured out and who doesn't. I don't think there's going to be much catching up. It's going to be much of the usual is more of what I'm saying. There's not going to be that closeness.
I feel like at the beginning when this new car came out right a few years ago, that was kind of like the pitch that was thrown along with NASCAR was, oh, this is going to be so much parity with this new car. And then you see like it's still just Red Bull. I mean, Mercedes kind of fell off, but it's mostly just been Red Bull and like Ferrari in the beginning. And I think the same thing, Tim, I totally agree with you with this new car. I think it's going to be probably like Red Bull and then probably Ferrari, maybe. I mean, I think it's just going to be 2 or 3 teams that are just up there again. It's not going to cause any parity. It's going to be the exact same.
Yeah, and kind of to tie a bow in the F1 conversation, bringing that back to Tropper's point, if those teams are still the best, Red Bull is still a top tier team and has been for like 20 years. So even given the issues that Lawson has had and Tsunoda has had, and I can't even say Sergio Perez had issues. 2 years ago, Sergio Perez was second in points. I think a dialogue needs to be started that people have been way too hard on that Sergio Perez was like underperforming, and more so admit that Max Verstappen had the most dominant 2-year stretch in F1 history. So I think that point needs to be made number one. But if you are talking about the teams that are destinations, that Tim mentioned how, you want to be one of the 22. There's also, you want to be one of the 8. You want to drive for Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari, or Red Bull. And I'd argue that Ferrari and Red Bull, even with as good as McLaren is right now, and even with how Lewis elevated Mercedes, the 2 teams that are most synonymous with the sport, and I said this on the show on Friday with Tropper, are Red Bull and Ferrari. You would love to race at Red Bull. You would love to race with Max Verstappen. With the new car, I still think Red Bull is going to be quite good. And I also believe that they have been very focused behind the scenes since Adrian Newey left on 2026. And maybe that's part of the reason why that second car hasn't gotten better in 2025.
Can I just say real quick, because we had a comment in the chat. Michigan 58 said, so hire a guy closer to Max in style. It's not some unfathomable mystery in regards to who you approach to fill that second car if you do make that decision for Red Bull to go away from Yuki. So I don't know how you guys feel on that, but that could be a solution as well, as maybe that's how you get it closer. A guy that drives similar approach style to Max on road courses, comfort and feel could get them closer, even if it's not the most talented.
Yeah, who's that going to be? I mean, the guy who's got this, I love Ollie Behrman. The guy who's the most similar to Max Verstappen is George Russell, and George Russell clearly isn't leaving Mercedes anytime soon, and you're not getting George
Unless
Russell.
You want to build a super team, and you pay him a lot of money. F1 is politics at the end of the day. Just a reminder, you pay a lot of money, who knows?
Which is the same thing, but when it comes to politics, too, Verstappen and Russell do not like each other. I don't think George Russell wants to be Max Verstappen's teammate. I don't think George Russell wants to be second fiddle to Max Verstappen either. So I agree to the fans' point, the listeners' point. You got to look for someone that fits Verstappen's driving style. I think Ollie Behrman's the best option. So,
by the way, I just have one more question. Where do we see Aston Martin next year? Because that's the big thing.
They're the opposite of Red Bull, because I think they're going to be held back by their drivers. Because I think Fernando Alonso is good, but Fernando Alonso is 46 years old? I mean, he's very old, and Lance Stroll is very bad. So the car is going to be good, but I think the actual the driver lineup they have could be bottom 3 in F1 next year. So, that's what's going to hold them back. I think the car is going to be good. I think they're going to qualify very well. I think we're going to see something very reminiscent to 2-3 years ago, where they're qualifying consistently up in the top 5, but is Alonso going to be able to hang up there like he did at the beginning of 2023? I don't know at this age and juncture. I've learned you can't doubt Fernando Alonso, but I think the bigger question is, I think Lance Stroll is going to hold that team back. And he's not going anywhere, but you got to just state the facts.
Doesn't his father still work for the team, I believe?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, and that is why he is still in the car.
Right,
so,
yeah.
He completely just gave Bortoleto no space in the first lap in Brazil and just sent him in the wall. I mean,
Yep.
and that's not the first time we've seen this with Stroll. So I don't know. But we'll have more discourse on F1 come Friday on the show as we'll get you set for the Vegas Grand Prix and the final 3-race run to the championship, which is still up for grabs, but Lando Norris certainly has a foothold on it after his good run in the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Now, I want to switch to NASCAR because TCB, you were talking about new cars and everything, and me and Tropper alluded to this briefly on Friday. Now, I'm someone who doesn't really care about the model of the car. I think at the end of the day, there's not much difference between the 3 cars. But you have a take on the new Chevy Camaro or Camaro type thing, whatever they're putting out there in 2026.
Yes, I have a whole thing of notes here.
Oh my
I am,
gosh.
I am, I am honestly surprised and disappointed, very disappointed to say. Number one being that Chevy currently, if you look at their lineup, they don't have a single sedan or muscle car. I mean, not counting the Corvette, they don't have a single sedan that you can go to the dealership and buy at all. So for me, that's like this is stock car, right? Like this is stock car racing. You're supposed to have a production vehicle. They stopped producing this vehicle back in 2024, right? So the loophole, this whole thing is that they got accessories to put on this car just so they can say, oh, we're allowed to run it for another however long. But the whole issue is eventually they're going to have to change this again because for one, it's the same car. We all know this. It's an AI photo. Everyone talks about the AI photo. That's beyond me or whatever. I don't really care about that. I'm more caring about the future fans and like myself growing up when Jeff Gordon drove the Monte Carlo Chevrolet SS, right? It was the greatest car in the world to me. And I was like, when I grow up, I want a Monte Carlo SS. Obviously, I don't have one, but I love that car. So now the kids that are growing up are like, oh my God, I love Chase Elliott's. Well, this year was Chevrolet ZL1, and you can't buy a Chevrolet ZL1, but they're like, oh yeah, I love Chase Elliott's Camaro. You can't go out and buy a Camaro right now. It's like brand new. Obviously, you go buy used, but I don't really think you'd want to do that. But my number one point on this is I just it bothers me that they found a loophole to keep this car around. They are beating a dead horse at this point. They just keep finding ways to keep it around because they don't, again, alluding back to not having a sedan. They don't have a sedan or a muscle car. They have a Corvette, but they cannot physically have that car fit on the next gen because rear engine motor and stuff. So, instead of going to Cadillac, they're like, okay, we're just gonna find this loophole and just keep running this car that we've been running for the past 4 or 5 years, however long the next gen has been out, because they don't have a sedan. Unlike Toyota, who has the Camry and the Corolla, and even Ford, they have an EV Mustang, but they still have a real Mustang, and they still have cars. Chevy has no cars at all. And to me, it because I'm a car guy and I love cars, and I've always loved Chevy growing up, and now I'm just like, but it just does not make any sense how they just couldn't get anything together, even a concept car or something. Just get something together to get an actual car out there that's not a Camaro that's been going on since 2022 or 3. It's insane to me.
As a driver of a Chevy Cruze, put a Chevy Cruze out there. I'd love to see Larson win a championship.
Something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and also real quick, I mean, the only actual sedan car that they have is, I believe I looked, the re-releasing of the Chevy Volt or something like that. So unless like this EV car that NASCAR has been working on or whatever, which that's another conversation another day. Unless they're coming out with that, then I could see Chevy be going all in on that. All right, let's put the EV Blazer out there. You know, they got the EV Blazer, a pace car and stuff. So I could see if we're going to an electric thing, which I hope we're not. But again, just they got it. I don't understand why they just don't have any sedans, or why have they just completely gone away from it, and they can't figure out how to put an actual real life production car that's going to make kids one day say, hey, I want to go buy this car. They can't put it on the street or in NASCAR. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, my question to you though is this, TCB. Is it the fact that they just don't have the production car in real life that is bothering you? Or is it the fact that they can go back and say, hey, we can continue to make adjustments to this specifically because they want to focus on racing and nothing else about racing that gives them the upper edge? Because that's the big thing for me. I mean, the changes that they're going to make for this Chevy car this year, if they don't like it, who says next year, the year after, they go back and make adjustments and they're steps ahead of the other manufacturers, which is the ultimate goal of these manufacturers, by the way, is to be the best. So is that the problem? Is that they have something that the other two can't have? Is your thing on it?
You know what? It's a little bit of both. More of like number one is if it's stock car racing, and from what I've always understood, and I could be wrong, you're supposed to have a car that is being currently produced and that the consumer can go and buy.
Right. That's 100% correct, by the way.
Right. Right. And it's supposed to be you're actually supposed to be selling it currently, like right now, like being able to go into a showroom and buy it. And you can't buy that. You can't buy a brand new Camaro. They've stopped making them completely. So that's kind of like my number one, because now it's like, okay, now we're really bending the rules just for not really just for Chevrolet, but Chevrolet has found a loophole somehow. And I'm more of like, what the heck? So number two, no, it doesn't necessarily bother me that they can try to find performance out of it. Um, I just really feel like they should, if it's not a production car, it shouldn't be out there. That's just my whole gripe on it. I mean, they're just not coming out with it right now. Like I said, not on showroom floors. That's my gripe.
I agree, or at least don't call it a stock car racing series because then it just questions what a stock car is. I think back to maybe it was the 70s, not like insanely early NASCAR, but like right when it was starting to get that modern era where it was what's the term? Race on Sunday, sell on Monday. Exactly what you said, TCB. Like it's not even a stock car anymore. I've said that the three different manufacturers in the Cup Series, the next gen car, they all look alike to me. It literally just looks to me sometimes like they slap a sticker on the front with the manufacturer logo, and you can't like under the hood, you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference. Obviously, we know that's not entirely true, but that's what it feels like these days. So bring back more of that identity. And if having a production car is what you need to do that, I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, and that's why like I can't get that animated about this because the entire era of NASCAR that I have followed, which I mean, I was a fan starting really in 2011, but let's just say Gen 6 and next gen, the cars all look the same. Like it literally, like to Tropper's point, it feels like there's a sticker. The only difference to me is the front grille. And the only time that we have genuinely seen the impact of the different cars has been pushing each other at Daytona and Talladega, where like the Chevy and Ford bumpers wouldn't line up for years. Like that's why I personally can't get into it as much. So that's why, to Tropper's point, and I guess to your point, Tyrell, there needs to be more of differentiation, which I think would just add another layer to what would make it more interesting. And of course, to the stock car point as well, it should be a car that you can actually buy. That's what the entire point of a stock car is.
Well, can I just say real quick too?
Yeah.
I just have this feeling that, listen, we've talked about as kids the manufacturer wars. And of course, we saw the toxicity 2 years ago of manufacturers playing favors to try to get their cars in the Final Four and so on with this playoff system. But I'm just saying, I have this feeling, and I just have this feeling if Chevy continues to go the route it's done for this year in the future and NASCAR doesn't, step its foot down, I'm just saying there's going to be a manufacturer war because, especially Toyota, I don't consider Toyota the manufacturer that came into NASCAR and was immediately restricted because they had certain advantages and some other things to sit back and be like, you know what? We're just going to let Chevy walk all over us. These other manufacturers are going to start a war with each other. And in a way, I'm going to be honest with you, I think that would make things kind of exciting that these manufacturers have wars, maybe not the toxicity of what we see with this playoff system, but I think it would be a good thing for them to try to hold each other accountable and also release a bunch of limited edition cars that only really put themselves in the category of NASCAR. It's still stock car if that's the standard, but it makes it a little bit more exclusive. So I don't know. That's another perspective, at least I come from on it. But I just feel like war is on the brink. That's where I'm coming from on that.
War is on the brink. Good way to
sorry,
put it.
Tim. So can I just ask real quick?
Yeah.
So being that Chevy, have come up with this Camaro again, right? Just keep kicking the can down the road. How far do you see them kicking this can down the road of the Camaro, honestly?
As far as NASCAR allows them to. As far as NASCAR allows them to. I mean, to me, I know that the new nose and so on may not look as different to what last year's was, but there was a tiny bit, a couple differences. Things are a little bit more rounded, similar to the Ford, especially towards the top, which could help towards downforce at these flat tracks and these other things. And the thing is that if Chevy has created this year a hybrid or at least some sort of growth to give them more grip, these other manufacturers are going to take notice. I mean, we talked about last year. Was it last year or was it the year before? God, it feels so quick to this point. When Ford made its change, how long ago did Ford make its change in the Cup Series?
24, so that was 2 years ago. Yeah.
Right. So 2 years ago when Ford's, obviously I know they didn't come out, they didn't win right away and so on, but you were able to see the difference. And obviously Toyota, to me, I like the old Toyota look better than the new one. That's just me. But the performance standpoint for Toyota has changed significantly. So this was, of course, Chevy's turn to make some changes, but they very clearly feel what they currently have works. They just need a little adjustment around that. So how long it lasts, again, I don't know. I just think that if Chevy turns around this year and they dominate, NASCAR doesn't hold any standards of certain things for change in the future, I just think these manufacturers are going to put their foot down, but I wouldn't be surprised if war starts even before then, a quarter of the way through the year. And the big thing, and I'll say it like this, obviously we know every year when we head to Daytona, right? Because that's really when the season begins, not the Clash and so on, where you're running around the first gear at Bowman Gray. It's Daytona. We know every year until last year, Hendrick Motorsports is typically the team that dominates when we talk about speed and super speedway and so on. But if those Hendrick cars show up, and they're great in qualifying trim, and they don't have to adjust much for race trim, there's going to be a lot of talk around the town, is all I'm saying, about how these cars are made and what needs to be changed, because that'll be the start of long season. That is all I'm saying, is that what we could see next year.
Just to play devil's advocate real quick here. The last time outside of the next gen overhaul in 22, when was the last time that Chevrolet made a big change to their nose? It was 2018 when Chevrolet just sucked. What was their first win? It was Chase Elliott, right? Or it was one of the few wins that they had that entire season. So just saying, I mean, do I agree that there's not going to be a major change here and that there's no production stock counterpart? No. But from a performance standpoint, you have what works. You have the defending champion in Kyle Larson, that number 5 car. Why would you want to change what isn't broken?
Well, that's what you just said, Tropper. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's what I think the perspective Chevy's coming from. I just think that they're coming with the mindset of, right, well, if we round the nose a little bit, we see what's working for the Fords, if we can just adapt that little bit, we can be so much better. That's what I think it is. And again, I know the scent of stock car, you have to have that car in production and so on. And it's a shame Chevy doesn't have that. But again, it comes down to these manufacturers. Obviously, they're their own individually, but to me, I'm just saying, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, Chevy cares more about racing than they do selling cars. That's just my perspective about it, with how they approach being a manufacturer. Obviously, Toyota is very involved in racing more than the other two manufacturers, and of course, Ford as well too is very involved. But to me, in my opinion, with Chevy's approach, all they care about is racing and winning. And right now they're winning. So I don't see why you wouldn't change much of winning if it's there and just adapting with the times. That's all.
Yeah, but the thing too, there's just to wrap on this, like there's a lot of pent up frustration with Chevy as well from the perspective of the other manufacturers. I mean, Toyota now doesn't have a Cup championship since 2019. The two teams that are suing NASCAR are not Chevy teams right now. So there's a lot. I think the animosity towards Hendrick and stuff definitely exists too. But I want to segue into this idea I had for the end of the show today, because it is the NASCAR off season. It's kind of a slow news cycle right now. And I've always seen on Barstool how they do like those like drafts and they do like Mount Rushmores and stuff. And I had a little game idea. So all 4 of us are going to have to build 4-car teams that would compete in the Cup Series. Now, let's just pretend it's a points format. So there's no advantage to signing SVG, for example, because he's going to win you into the playoffs. So just pretend it's like a full season points format. Now, the eligible drivers are anybody who's raced in the Cup Series in the last 10 seasons. So that includes the 2016 season, which includes a lot of significant drivers, and you'll be drafting them at their peak. So, peak Jimmy Johnson, peak Tony Stewart, peak Jeff Gordon, peak Dale Jr.
Jimmy Johnson was not peak in 2016.
Yeah, but it would be him at his peak, though. Yeah, he certainly was not.
You said the last 10 years, so like 2016, he was not
Yeah,
in his peak.
No. Drivers who have made a Cup start in the last 10 years, but their peak, they could have peaked well before that. Tony Stewart certainly peaked before 2016. So I have my little list randomizer here that you probably can't see, but I will press the button. All right, so Tropper has the first pick. It's going to be a snake draft, so it'll go Tropper, Tim, TCB, me, and then wrap around. So we're going to be putting together 4-car teams, and I'll make a little graphic. I'll throw it on the socials, and we'll see whose team people think is the best. So Tropper, you have a ton of pressure. Anybody who's made a Cup start in the last 10 years, at their peak, who are you taking as your number 1 pick to start your 4-car team?
You know who made like 8 starts in 2016 on their way out? None other than Jeff Gordon. And if you look at his peak in the late 90s, early 2000s, 4-time champion, arguably one of the best of all time, that is consistency at its finest for over 20 years. So you know what? As soon as you said 2016, you didn't even say full time. I'm just like, come on, no one noticed that loophole. I was hoping I'd get the first pick here just in case, but I got to take Gordon.
All right. So Tim, you are on the clock.
So just for the record, we're talking about overall consistency from start to finish in the year, correct?
Yes,
that's what we're looking at.
Yes, I don't want to be thinking of playoffs or anything.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, if you want to talk about preaching consistency from start to finish, I'm sorry, I hate to say it, we call him the most talented driver currently for a reason. I'm taking Kyle Larson. That man competes. He is the overall champion this year. He's in the mix every year. I want Kyle Larson as my pick at number 2.
All right, so TCB, you are on the clock.
Well, both my first picks were taken. So I'm going to go with somebody that actually walked out in 2016. I'm going to take Carl Edwards.
All right. So I did not expect this when I got the 4th pick, that I would have a chance, 4th and 5th pick, at these 2 drivers at their peak. I mean, I know he got aided by the format, but Jimmy Johnson is a 7-time champion. I'm taking Jimmy Johnson on my team, and I will have another pick right here. Now, I'm thinking about a few people. I know I always say he's not a top 5 driver all time, but at his peak, whatever you'd consider it to be, whether it's the mid-2010s or maybe the late 2000s, Kyle Busch was unbelievable. So I will start my team with Jimmy Johnson and Kyle Busch, and that means it's back to TCB.
Everybody's just taking my picks. All right. If it was a Kyle Busch, I was gonna have to take the guy that didn't win the championship, Denny Hamlin.
All right, so you're looking like mid-2010s Joe Gibbs Racing. You've got Carl Edwards and Denny. So, Tim, who are you pairing with Kyle Larson?
Well, I'm going to go with a guy who won a championship in the current format, a guy who knows how to make the best out of bad situations. I'm going with Kevin Harvick. It's that simple. Top 10s, constant, wins races. At his peak, Kevin Harvick was the guy. There was no doubt about it.
Tropper, you are up. You're up back-to-back now.
Now it starts to get a little bit interesting.
Yes.
I really am thinking this one through. This is
There's a lot of good names out there.
There are. It's just trying to maximize the best possible options out there at this point. I'm thinking, you know what? I was talking about at its peak. I just don't know if the guy I'm thinking warrants an 8th pick. That's all. That's what frustrates
remember,
me.
you go 8th and 9th.
Yeah, he
Just
might
a
warrant a
reminder.
9th pick.
So
Okay.
you're thinking of 2 here, not just 1.
Okay. Well, you know what? let's go with let's go with Joey Logano. He's always there. Let's go Joey at 8. And then
I'm curious now thinking about
I'm
this. What is
curious on
Joey
that.
Logano's peak? Because it
always
certainly
there,
wasn't his championship at
always
maybe
there.
2018, but he was maybe the fourth best driver in
2015,
2018.
2015, he had like 6 wins, right?
Yeah. All right.
Um, and then let's go with I know I'm going to be missing someone here, but let's go with someone that Joey Logano has had to choose with, Matt Kenseth.
I was waiting for Kenseth to go off the board. I was thinking about him. All right, so then it cycles back to Timothy.
So I just want to point out real quick before I give my pick. Kicking it with Lando said I'd pick prime Tony Stewart, but that's just me. I think that's very fair, but I'm not. I'm not picking prime Tony Stewart. I'm sorry, it's just never going to happen. But who I will pick in their prime and currently, by the way, still very much is in their prime. If you base it off the Winston Cup Series standings, he is a defending two-time Winston Cup Series champion. I want Christopher Bell. He is top 5 in the points every season. I don't care about win totals. I care about consistency, which is why, by the way, I picked Kevin Harvick with the pick before. Christopher Bell is that darn consistent. That's why I want him.
All right, well, TCB, it cycles back to you.
Well, the guy in the chat said who I wanted. I want prime Tony Stewart. I want the Tony Stewart that was climbing fences, doing straight line burnouts, climbing the fence at Daytona and into the flag stand. That's who I want on my team.
Ah, that's who I wanted. All right, now I got to think about a few people. There's several routes I could go here. I was thinking I was thinking a sneaky pick, but I don't think he's above some of these other people. Is Bobby Labonte because he did race in 2016 and he is a former champion, but I don't think that his peak is as good as a few people that are still available. Now, I wanted Tony Stewart. We're talking about consistency, so I will add someone who has been the model of consistency in the Cup Series for the last 5 years. And again, if you were under that format, he'd be a perennial contender for a championship, and that's Chase Elliott. He's won in the other format. I'd still take Chase Elliott at his peak, which I'd say probably, I don't know, it could be this year, could be 2020. Years where Chase Elliott ran in the top 20 basically every race. He only had 2 DNFs all year, and both of them were the fault of other people. So I'd take Chase Elliott at his peak. And then for my last pick, there are some good names that are still out here. I'm flipping between two drivers right now.
So hold on. You took Chase Elliott over William Byron?
Yes.
That is intriguing.
Yes.
I'm not taking William Byron, by the way.
I'm not taking Mr. 100 overall. I don't think he's proven it enough for me. He's the clean air merchant. You've said that before.
Yeah, but he's also top 5 every year. I'm just saying.
Not like the first 5 years of his career.
Yeah, but it's in his peak. That's all that matters.
I don't know. I like Chase Elliott over William Byron still. Now, I'm going to go a little further back. I'm trying to decide between two people. Now, I really wanted to take Kenseth, and he's off the board.
What about MTJ?
That's one of the three people I'm thinking about right now. I'm thinking about him, I'm thinking about Brad, and I'm thinking about Kurt Busch. And those are all options. So Kurt Busch's peak, I'd say probably was early
2004.
Yeah.
I would say 2004 when he won the championship.
I think people forget because he's become kind of irrelevant the last 4 years. Brad Keselowski was really, really good in the 20 teens. I mean, obviously his championship year in 2012, but even through the mid-20 teens with Penske, he made the Final Four on a few separate occasions. He was significantly better than Joey Logano through those years. He's worth considering, but if we're going through peak, 2017 Martin Truex Jr., I mean, he was just something. And if you pair him with Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, and Jimmy Johnson, that's a pretty stacked team. So I'm taking MTJ and Chase Elliott with my picks, and now it goes to TCB for his fourth and final driver.
Oh man. I'm kind of stuck between two drivers. But I think I've made my mind up. I think I'm gonna have to go with Dale Earnhardt Jr., but
I
2004.
knew that was coming.
I gotta go 04 Junior, man. I mean, the guy dominated that. He should have won a championship if he didn't say that four-letter word on national television. So I'm going with him.
All right, Tim.
So I'm a man that's none of betrayal, by the way, and I don't care if this is the top 4 picks. While I could sit here and I could pick William Byron, I am simply picking Alex Bowman because he is just
Oh
the
my
best driver in NASCAR.
Oh my
He'll
God.
be the 4th best driver on your team, just like in reality. So,
Hey, that's fine. I can live with that. Consistency rewards urgency. Let's put it like that.
but he's not even consistent.
Wait, well, hold on. I got a dumb question. What if I picked Connor Zilic right here?
That's what I was thinking also.
The thing is, he hasn't peaked yet. His peak would be 2025. Do you want 2025 Connor Zilic that's made 4 Cup starts? I mean, he's
No,
gonna be
I want
racing the
Alex
Cup Series
Bowman.
against these guys. You're sticking
That's a
Alex
fair
Bowman?
question, though.
Yeah. All right, Tropper. You get to pick Mr. Irrelevant.
This is a tough one. I mean,
I'll give you a hint. Michael Waltrip did race through 2018 if you're interested.
that's yeah, Michael Waltrip. Let's see who else. Danica Patrick. There's some great names on here.
Mike
Um,
Harmon,
Justin Haley's still out there, you know.
Quinn House.
Michael Annette,
Dylan
Okay.
Lupton?
Paul Menard.
Cody Ware.
Man, I'm being
Derek Cope?
bombarded with all these great picks.
Pete Derek Cope won a Daytona 500. Don't forget that, Tropper.
Well, I was thinking, and this peak is a very interesting one to me. I'm deciding between either Brad or
Greg Biffle.
actually no, but where I was going with is one that's incredibly underrated and potentially he didn't finish the highest in standings, but if we're going off of the 2003 season, what about none other than Rocket Man Ryan Newman? I think I'm gonna have to go with him.
All right. So, just a refresher, our teams. I'm pretty happy with my team. I got Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, and Martin Truex Jr.
Should we establish the roster, by the way, by specific seasons of those
Yes.
drivers?
Yes.
Because
So,
I'm picking any season Alex Bowman, by the way, not just the bet. I'm thinking any season Alex.
all right. So Jeff Gordon. Let's decide. What was Jeff Gordon's peak?
Either
The
probably
90s.
98.
Not,
It's a 13
yeah,
win season.
98.
Yeah,
That was
98.
98.
98.
What Kyle Larson are we taking? 2021, Tim, or this year? Or
I would say 2021. It was a dominant year. It was untouchable.
Carl Edwards' peak? Was it 2016?
I would say
It's 2011.
Yeah,
I would say it's 2011 or before then. Because Carl Edwards at the start of
Maybe
his career,
2008.
even if he
Yeah,
wasn't
oh,
winning
wait.
races,
Yeah,
he was
go wait.
consistent. Kicking with Lando said 2010, by the way.
2010, Carl. All right.
Yeah.
Jimmy. I'm trying to think which of Jimmy's seasons was actually like full on great.
Was it 07? I think.
That's what I'm
07.
thinking.
I think he got like 8 wins. He had one more than Jeff, I think.
Uh,
07 was a
probably.
great year, by the way. I want to talk about a great looking car,
Oh.
great looking everything. But
Yes.
the Cup car in 2007, prior to the COT, was, in my opinion, the best looking cars in all of NASCAR. That's just my opinion.
That's why I won a Monte Carlo. That's all, you know?
All right, I'll go 07 Jimmy. I mean, even though he was aided by the format, Kyle Busch, when he came back from the leg injury for those 5 months, was superhuman. So I'm taking 2015 Kyle Busch. Denny Hamlin, is it 2025 Denny Hamlin?
No, I would, even though he didn't come with the title, I would have to argue 2020's got to be there somewhere too,
Yeah.
because he won a lot of races in 2020.
Then we'll go.
But then
20
his playoffs, he just tanked the playoffs. That's the only issue.
Then we'll go 2020.
In 21, he made the final four, not as many wins though. But
Yeah, but the playoffs were abysmal. He had 2 top tens, real top tens. I don't count Talladega still.
All right, what Kevin Harvick are we getting here? Because there's a lot of good.
I want the championship, Kevin Harvick.
14 Harvick. All right.
14 Harvick was untouchable.
Logano, we established what, 15? Because
It has
I
to
don't
be.
think any of his championship years.
It has to be 15.
Kenseth, I mean, if we're going consistency, it's got to be his championship year, which was what, 04?
Oh,
Free.
03.
03.
I'd argue 13 for him too.
That's a good point, actually. Did he have like
I think
6
he had
wins? Came in.
5 or
Did he
6
come in
wins.
second in points?
I
I
think so.
Ooh,
think so. No, he was third, I think. Second or
ooh,
third.
that's actually very interesting because with under GGR
Very slow.
power,
Yeah.
a more mature Kenseth too. Ooh. I mean, I'm tempted either way, but whichever you guys think has a more definitive peak for Kenseth, I'm
I
willing to
think
accept.
13, low key.
I would go 13.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
13 Kenseth. Christopher
Okay.
Bell. Do you have a specific year of Christopher Bell that you want, Tim?
Any of the last 2 years. I really don't care. Bell's been at his best the last 2 seasons.
We'll take Bell 25. What Tony Stewart are you taking, TCB?
2005, climbing the fence. I want him.
Chase, this might be crazy, but I'm taking this year's Chase Elliott. I think this year's Chase Elliott was very, very good. I mean,
You finished races. You talk about this format. I'm
Yes.
just saying this year's Chase Elliott.
Truex,
was-
there's no question
Yes.
about that. What Dale Jr. are we throwing in there?
He said
04.
2004 earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2004 Dale Jr. was
Mhm.
the Dale Jr.
If
All
you
right.
didn't say the
14 was
four-letter word.
incredibly. 14 was the comeback though.
Ooh, that's true.
But I think 04 Dale Jr. was more versatile than 14.
Yeah, 4 wins, I think, that year. Yeah.
All right, and Alex, do you have a choice of what Alex Bowman you get, Tim? Do you want the BK Racing Alex Bowman?
I will take any year Alex Bowman for that matter, but I don't know because 2020 he should have been a Final Four contender and wasn't because he was that darn good in the round of 8. Last
2021 he
year,
actually has a multi-win season.
yeah, but I like consistency, and he's consistently at least in the playoffs. So there's that. I don't know. Like I said, any year Alex Bowman, I don't care what you pick. I'll even pick BK Alex Bowman because
I'll
that's
give you
how good he is.
2020 to be nice.
Okay.
And then 03 Newman we established. So we will be posting this on social media. But just to recap, our driver draft, where again the stipulation is any driver at their peak that's made a cup start in the last 10 seasons. So since 2016, get your best 4 driver lineup to compete in a Winston style format where there's no playoffs, wins, win and you're in type stuff, straight up scoring points. Tropper's team is 1998 Jeff Gordon, 2015 Joey Logano, 2013 Matt Kenseth, and 2003 Ryan Newman. Tim's team is 2021 Kyle Larson, 2014 Kevin Harvick, this year's Christopher Bell, and 2020 Alex Bowman. TCB's got 2011 Carl Edwards, 2020 Denny Hamlin, 2005 Tony Stewart, 2004 Dale Jr., and I got 07 Jimmy, 15 Kyle Busch, this year's Chase Elliott, and 2017 Martin Truex Jr. So I like my team. I can't lie here. If Martin Truex Jr. in 2017 is my 3rd strongest driver, I'm feeling pretty good. But we'll let everybody decide on the socials. And with that, that'll wrap up this episode of Motorsports Today, episode 208, I believe. We'll be back on Friday live at 12 o'clock on WRSU.org, getting you set for the Las Vegas Grand Prix on Saturday night. But that'll do it for this episode. For Adam Chopper, TCB, Tim Moore, I'm Eddie Kalegi signing off, and we will talk to you again on Friday.